In just 3 minutes and 47 seconds, one Swiss bank audit destroyed the world's most beloved war hero. I've covered 43 international summits. I've witnessed diplomatic breakdowns, alliance collapses, and career assassinations. But what happened at 2:43 p.m. on January 19th in the Davos Congress Center wasn't just diplomatic confrontation, it was systematic obliteration of Volodymyr Zelensky by a woman who had built an unbreakable case of the largest humanitarian aid theft in modern history. Kemi Badenoch walked into panel room C, carrying a reinforced diplomatic case sealed with UK Trade Department and SAS intelligence stamps. She looked like an international prosecutor who had assembled evidence to destroy a criminal network built on exploiting humanitarian crisis. What none of us knew was that case contained audit documents exposing $5.4 billion in reconstruction aid diversions to shell companies controlled by Zelensky's network. But she didn't open it immediately. The silence before evisceration was electric. The conference room went still, not respectful summit courtesy, but absolute silence when everyone senses a war hero's reputation, destruction. At 2:22 p.m., Zelensky's chief of staff received an urgent encrypted message. His face transformed from confident to terrified as he whispered something desperate in Ukrainian. Zelensky's heroic composure cracked. His reconstruction coordinator was frantically checking emergency communications. He looked like someone who knew 2 years of international sympathy was about to be exposed as Davos's biggest humanitarian fraud. And then Badenoch unlocked her diplomatic case. "President Zelensky," she began, her voice carrying prosecutorial authority. "I want to discuss Ukrainian reconstruction efforts and concerning financial irregularities brought to my attention through Five Eyes intelligence cooperation." Standard opening. Nothing threatening. Zelensky looked relieved, confident. His media team were preparing responses about Russian disinformation attacks on Ukraine's rebuilding efforts. But Badenoch's case was positioned precisely, opened to a tab marked with UK financial intelligence and Swiss banking authority seals. This wasn't routine discussion. This was systematic prosecution. "Secretary Badenoch," Zelensky replied in his accented English, "Ukraine remains committed to transparent reconstruction that reflects our democratic values and international accountability standards." Perfect diplomatic deflection. But Badenoch wasn't interested in reconstruction philosophy. She was building towards something devastating, like an investigator with documents to destroy years of fraudulent claims. "President Zelensky," she said, removing a document, "are you familiar with the Ukrainian Reconstruction Facilitation Office, established in Geneva on April 3rd? The question hit the panel like diplomatic dynamite. Zelensky's expression didn't change, but I watched his hands. They went rigid. When war heroes' hands stop moving during aid discussions, their survival instincts have activated. "Secretary Badenoch," Zelensky replied, maintaining composure but lacking confidence, "Ukraine works with numerous reconstruction coordination bodies as part of our comprehensive approach to democratic rebuilding and international partnership." Wrong answer. Catastrophic. When asked about a specific reconstruction office in Switzerland with a specific date, generic answers suggest massive cover-up. Badenoch pulled out a second document with Swiss banking authority stamps and Five Eyes classification markings. "President Zelensky," she continued, gaining momentum, "according to these financial audit documents, the Ukrainian Reconstruction Facilitation Office has processed $5.4 billion in international reconstruction aid since." A shockwave rippled through panel observers. $5.4 billion represented nearly half of Ukraine's total international reconstruction commitments. But Badenoch was just beginning her systematic evisceration. "And President," she said, producing a third document, "these files show that only $847 million of those funds ever reached their intended Ukrainian reconstruction recipients." The conference room fell silent. Not diplomatic courtesy. This was international leaders processing information that could destroy careers and trigger criminal investigations. Zelensky's advisor leaned forward, his training inadequate for criminal allegations. His media handler stopped checking communications, staring at Badenoch with disaster shock. But what happened next changed everything. Zelensky shot forward, his legendary wartime composure evaporating. Secretary Badenoch, these allegations represent serious mischaracterization of legitimate reconstruction coordination processes. President Zelensky, Badenoch interrupted, cutting through the protest. Are you denying that you personally authorized transfer documents for $4.67 billion in reconstruction funds that have disappeared from official audit trails? Silence. Absolute silence. For 21 seconds I counted. Zelensky said nothing. 21 seconds in high-stakes international proceedings equals admission of guilt. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. The confident war leader was gone, replaced by panic with a Ukrainian accent. I authorize numerous reconstruction documents as part of Ukraine's rebuilding coordination responsibilities. I cannot recall every specific funding arrangement referenced in these allegations. Devastating response. When a war hero says, I cannot recall about $4.67 billion in missing reconstruction funds while his people live in bombed cities, it sounds like systematic humanitarian fraud conducted under wartime sympathy cover. Badenoch opened her case one final time and removed the smoking gun that ended Zelensky's international hero status. President, she said, her voice now carrying absolute authority. Perhaps this will help refresh your reconstruction memory. She placed a surveillance photograph on the conference table. The image showed Zelensky at an exclusive Swiss ski resort, celebrating with expensive champagne, while Ukrainian reconstruction officials were visible in the background. This photograph was taken by Swiss financial intelligence at Gia Stade Palace on December 23, 23, while Ukrainians spent Christmas in bombed buildings. The same weekend that $1.9 billion in reconstruction funds were transferred to accounts that international auditors cannot trace. The timing was devastating. Christmas celebration, same weekend, same luxury location. This wasn't Ukrainian reconstruction, this was documented enrichment by someone who claimed to champion his people's suffering while secretly stealing their rebuilding funds. Zelensky's face drained of color. His hands were visibly shaking. Not diplomatic nervousness, actual trembling visible to every world leader. In the Ukrainian delegation section, his reconstruction team was typing frantically, sending emergency damage control instructions to every Ukrainian embassy and reconstruction office. But Badenoch wasn't finished eviscerating Ukraine's war hero. President, she continued, producing another document with FBI financial crimes investigation seals. I also have internal Ukrainian government communications showing you personally overruled reconstruction audit recommendations that flagged the Ukrainian Reconstruction Facilitation Office as a potential criminal fraud operation. At 2:27 p.m., 4 minutes after she'd begun speaking, Volodymyr Zelensky experienced complete heroic political breakdown. His voice was barely audible through translation systems. Secretary Badenoch, these documents lack proper wartime context. Ukrainian reconstruction requires complex coordination arrangements during ongoing conflict. He stopped mid-sentence. 26 seconds of silence. I have never seen a wartime leader unable to complete a sentence during international proceedings. The silence was broken by Badenoch's calm response. President, I'm not questioning complex arrangements. I'm questioning $4.67 billion in reconstruction funds that disappeared while Ukrainian families froze in bombed apartments. The accusation hung in the room like diplomatic poison. This wasn't just about reconstruction policy. This was about systematic betrayal of humanitarian responsibility by the world leader who claimed to champion his people's suffering while secretly enriching his network through aid meant for bombed cities. Zelensky's diplomatic advisor was whispering urgently in Ukrainian, but even he seemed to recognize that standard wartime damage control was inadequate for humanitarian criminal allegations of this magnitude. Furthermore, Badenoch continued, opening her final folder, Swiss banking analysis confirms that these missing Ukrainian reconstruction funds were systematically diverted to accounts controlled by luxury resort networks throughout Switzerland, Monaco, and the French Riviera. The expansion from individual corruption to systematic luxury diversion across multiple countries demonstrated that this wasn't isolated fraud. This was criminal enterprise designed to enrich Ukrainian officials through international sympathy. At 2:28 p.m., Zelensky made the decision that ended his wartime international credibility. We will need to review these allegations with our legal teams and provide appropriate responses through established Ukrainian government procedures. Wrong answer. Internationally fatal. When accused of systematically stealing $4.67 billion in reconstruction aid while your people suffer in bombed cities, you don't promise to review allegations. You categorically deny or admit guilt. Promising procedural review sounds like buying time to destroy evidence. The conference room erupted in chaos. German Chancellor Scholz demanded clarification. The Swiss President, Amherd's advisor, was calling Bern. Polish Prime Minister Morawieckie's delegation was discussing emergency reconstruction audit sessions. In the press gallery, correspondents were typing frantically. The Financial Times correspondent spoke urgently. This could end Zelensky's international hero status. We're watching Ukrainian credibility collapse in real time. As the panel concluded, I overheard conversations confirming what every world leader was thinking. Il finita. Es ist vorbei. He's finished. The $5.4 billion reconstruction fraud wasn't just about aid coordination. It was about a war hero who had systematically betrayed international goodwill by stealing rebuilding funds while his people suffered in bombed cities. By 4:30 p.m. Alpine time, Zelensky scandal was trending globally. By 5:15 p.m., the FBI confirmed immediate investigation. By 6:07 p.m., 12 donor countries suspended reconstruction funding. Every major network ran wall-to-wall Ukraine Gate coverage, exposing the war hero as an aid-stealing hypocrite who betrayed humanitarian responsibility for personal luxury. And it all started with one diplomatic case, carried by a woman who had built an unbreakable case against the world's most beloved war leader. What I witnessed wasn't just Davos diplomacy. It was the moment when audit evidence obliterated heroic authenticity, when documented fraud defeated wartime theater, and when forensic preparation destroyed a leader's entire international sympathy. The World Economic Forum continued 3 more days, but everyone knew the outcome. Zelensky's credibility as wartime champion was finished. His authority as reconstruction leader was destroyed. Ukraine's humanitarian authenticity had shifted permanently away from aid-stealing politicians. Sometimes international justice takes years through war crimes tribunals. Sometimes it takes 4 minutes in a Swiss conference room. On January 19th, I watched Kemi Badenoch prove that in international relations, documented evidence always defeats heroic performance. The only question was how much damage Ukraine's humanitarian betrayal would do to international sympathy before the truth finished destroying Zelensky's career. If this exposure of wartime betrayal restored your faith in international accountability, don't just watch, like, share, and subscribe to our channel, where aid scandals get exposed and humanitarian lies get prosecuted, no matter which heroic accent they hide behind. Hit the bell. The next reconstruction fraud might involve your nation's aid. What would you do if you discovered your war hero had been stealing rebuilding funds meant for bombed cities? Drop a comment below. This analysis is based on international summit proceedings and Swiss banking audit documentation. All dialogue and specific details are dramatized for educational and commentary purposes.